Hey all you guys out there in YouTube land, Chibi here. This is going to be, sorry about that. This is going to be a response to a comment on my recast video. And I asked the person, hey, can I do a verbal response? Because I'm not very good at typing. It's my dyslexia. It's not my forte. So I was supposed to have plenty of time to do lots of things this weekend, but I keep getting called into work or weekend, my days off. Keep getting called into work for overtime, and which is wonderful, but tiring, and I have so much that I need to get done. So I haven't had a lot of time to really read through this comment and think a lot about what I wanted to say exactly. I have some, but what I think I'm going to do is they have this broken into little tiny paragraphs. So I'm going to read it, respond to that paragraph, and keep going. I hope it doesn't become repetitive because I can't remember exactly what everything's about. And I just remember that this is way too much for me to attempt to respond to typing. And I wanted to respond to them. And also, I thank them very kindly for the well written and thought out comment that wasn't expletive, you're fat, wannabe, Hollywood, blah, 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 which was funny. I'm still laughing about that one. I screen capped that one. That's funny. Oh, you can call me all the names in the world. I'm just gonna laugh at you. I love it. Anyway, so this person I thought deserved a response, and this is my best way of responding. So, please excuse, I'm just tired. I've worked I've worked like 6 days straight, and I work 10-hour shifts, so just bear with me, and hopefully this video will come out the way I want it to. It might be a bit long because this comment is really long. So, I'll read one paragraph, respond. So, if someone buys a recast because they want to try out the hobby but don't want to waste, she actually has that kind of money on a legit doll cost, to me, that is like saying, I don't know if I want to drive a car, but the more expensive ones are the best in the market. So I have to buy one of those to figure out if driving is for me. So my understanding of this is buying a recast is like test driving BJDs. My personal thought on that is it's not the same. If you would like to test out a BJD, we have companies that you can start with smaller dolls that are cheaper. There are cheaper companies, Resin Soul, Angel of Dream, Miro Doll, Hujo, and they're, if it's just about cost, there are cheap dolls out there. And I know Miro Doll can be like just as cheap as Recast. So I don't really find that to be an excuse at all, because you're buying a cheaper car, you're test driving a car, you're not buying a car where someone stole the exact specs of that car and remade it cheaper so that you could buy it. Does that make any sense? Hopefully that makes sense. It's not a comparative thing to me, because it'd be different. The response would be different. It's like, oh, I bought Resin Soul to try out because a Resin Soul Tiny is cheap for this hobby. Even their 1/3 scale dolls are like $200, so that's the equivalent. But Recast are not. Recast are stolen goods. It's more like, I didn't want to spend the money on a real handbag, so I went out and bought a boot, a fakey handbag, which I also don't agree with. yes, those companies actually do make millions and have lots of money, which our companies do not. I don't care what you have to say. Um, but I still don't agree with that either, because they designed those. They paid people to make them, and just like our dolls, these people made them and deserve to get paid. So that's my response to that paragraph. Okay. I totally agree that the legit dolls are what any person should aim for, but I can't understand the logic behind the reasoning for people who are so obsessed with legit dolls. I have started with a recast, but plan to move into legit dolls once I figure out if I really want to do this hobby. I did not feel like splashing $200 to $500 on a doll I might not like. Once I have it in my hands, there's also the whole other side of the hobby that many doll owners seem to forget to talk about. It is not only about the dolls themselves, but about what about all the clothes, hair, eyes? That is just as important to me as where the doll itself comes from. As I said, there are cheaper dolls from cheaper companies. I do not want to sound mean. But I will tell you, in my response to this, I will lay facts out as they are, or lay feelings out as they are, and it is just what it is. Recast are stolen properties, essentially. They didn't make a cheaper version of a mini fee. They stole it. The entire design. They stole they molded it exactly and copied it, making a bootleg. It's not a cheaper version of a BJD. It is stolen. It's kind of the best. Like, really, it's a copy. And to me, that's not okay. Period. They didn't spend all the time sculpting the doll. They didn't spend all the time figuring out the jointing system. They didn't figure out how the mechanisms works in the dolls, how to make everything work properly. They didn't pay people to do this. They didn't pay people to test things, figure out things don't work, have to retest, cast things don't work. They didn't spend the time and process getting to the point they're at. And the best I can tell you for this is go follow someone who's sculpting a doll currently. I know Pint Size Palace is supposedly going to be putting up some videos about her sculpting a doll. I know... What's your name? Oh, it's the girl that has the really cute wagon. Isn't that it? I'm pretty sure it's the girl that has the cute wagon, who's also sculpting a small doll. And she's done some videos on that. But you can look up things on YouTube and other platforms and see the process they go through. And remember, someone else went through that process and had their stuff stolen and just copied. And now they're making money off of it that they didn't do any of the work for at all. They took the doll, they made a mold out of it, they copied. They didn't do any of the legwork to deserve it. So, unfortunately, yes, this hobby is expensive. With the amount of dolls and doll goods and items and things and stuff I have bought that is doll related, I could have a car. That is, like, literally about 4 or 5 of my dolls are worth more than my car. That's the truth. But it's what I choose to spend my money on. Now, if you need to feel something, see something in person, there are other avenues. And no, they're not completely all accessible to everybody. But in some circumstances, that's just the way it is, and you have to deal with your circumstance. I'd never touched a BJD before I owned one. I had kind of seen them in passing. And I once went into a panel at an anime convention and saw people holding them. That was about the extent of my in person, stuff. But I mean, there are Facebook groups of people, and I mean, I've made one myself to try to find people in my area to make meets with. Their meets. Most anime conventions tend to have doll people at them or small meets at them, and there meets all around. There are meets in all different countries. I know there are some out there who don't, and I know that sucks, but if that's the situation you're in, you have to make the decision, and that's up to you. I'm not someone who can be like, this is your decision. No, it's, this is what you're going to do. Like that, I can't. I'm me, you're you. So, but that's the nature of this hobby. It's expensive. If it's not, something you want to get into, don't. But it's not fair to then just steal someone else's work. That's like, my friend's a painter, and she has some very popular paintings that she's made a lot of money off of. And that'd be pretty much someone taking the original, making a copy of it, and just then selling it for cheaper online than she's selling it. I mean, would you be okay with that? Would you, be okay with, going to Hot Topic and knowingly buying some of Hot Topic has straight up stole artwork from artists and never reimbursed them. Now they've tried to fix that. They've had their whole thing, and I know now they work with certain artists like Tasty Peach Studio, but would you knowingly go in there and buy that because it's cheaper than going on Etsy and buying directly from the artist, knowing that the artist isn't going to get anything? I wouldn't. I have, by accident, bought something from Hot Topic that I then later figured out was stolen artwork, because that was during the time when there was a whole big uproar about it, and I was like, oh crap, I own that. And I felt really horrible. I felt really, really horrible. Because no one should have their art stolen. And dolls are art. Someone took a lot of time and energy to sculpt them. And if you think companies like Fairyland and Lutz and Zoom and all these really expensive companies didn't spend a lot of time and energy working on the jointing system, how they work. I mean, even if you've ever had a Fairyland, or if you go to meet and see a Fairyland, you can just see the pure insanity that is the 50,000 pieces that make these dolls look and move the way they do and pose the way they do. I highly suggest you go to Fairyland's YouTube and watch one of their videos where they pose one of their dolls, and how much work they put into things like the centaur and the mermaid seahorse body, and to make it do the things it does. And then know that there are people who are buying, copied versions of these exact dolls, making money with none of the work. None of the work. They took the doll, they made a mold, and they were done. But they're cheaper, so they're better. I mean, I'd be cheaper too if I didn't have to pay the sculptor and pay the artist that did the paint on the face, and pay for the building, the overhead, the website, and everything else. I'm not trying to sound catty or mean. It's just a matter of fact. They don't have the overhead costs that the real companies have. They have artists who they pay to sculpt dolls. Some may do it under contract. Some may do it as an actual, full-time working with that company. There are different situations, but that artist has been paid for their work. Recasters aren't paying any artist for their work. They're stealing it. So, I'm going to finish off with that paragraph because this is already getting really long and I got a lot left. I was looking around online for months and months to find a legit doll. I just sadly had to say no and look into Recast only because most of the illegal doll, most of those legit doll companies do not offer any options for people with little money, and they do not have anything for first-time doll shoppers. They're artists, they can make the decision to not have that. And I already mentioned the cheap companies before. And I know there's the excuse of you don't. I do want to address that. There is the elitism against the cheaper doll companies. The people, I'm so sorry. Come on. Please. Thank you. There are buttholes out there who are like, oh, you have a resin soul. I don't care. I own everything from Resin Soul, Angel of Dream, and Hujo to Zoom Volks and Fairyland, and all for different reasons. And I love all my dolls for different reasons. If someone's a butthole, who cares? Oh, I'm not gonna buy a Resin Soul because it's a cheaper doll. That there might be a few people out there that are buttholes and won't like me for having. That was a big thing back in the day before Recast, was the whole, oh, you have a resin soul. And yeah, I was just like, yeah, I do. Here's my Resin Soul sitting directly beside my Volk doll. How do you feel about that? Make you feel bad? Yeah, that's what I thought. Makes you feel all not happy inside. Oh, I did that in a meet on purpose. I was butthole. I'm a tiny bit of a troll. Tiny. I did that on purpose, though. There was someone there who really looked down on cheaper dolls. Oh, I brought a very expensive doll and a very cheap doll. So they're like, here's my two dolls. And, oh, you could tell they didn't know what to do with that. But there are cheaper dolls out there. If you got a tiny Resin Soul doll, they are quite affordable. I know their USD Centaur is like $130. Yeah. Their tinies are even cheaper. And I know the only one of these cheap companies I do not own from is Miro Doll. And I heard many times of people talking about how they have these like ridiculous sales that make their dolls so freaking cheap. So if your thing is you didn't want to put a lot of money in it, you wanted to hold it first and see if you liked it, there you go. I don't personally like Mirror Doll. It's the only cheap company I don't like their face sculpts of. But I've seen some people do some pretty cool stuff with it. Now, personally, my favorite cheap company is Resin Soul. And yes, I do mean Resin Soul, not Babobi. Babobi's okay. I think Resin Soul is better customer service. And I like their bodies better than Babobi, even though they're kind of technically the same company. It's kind of weird. Dollzone and Doll Cheat are the same way. They're technically kind of sort of the same, but not. But yeah, they're cheap dolls out there. If you don't know, ask. There are plenty of people. I know plenty of people here on YouTube. At the very least, I mean, we put our face out there. We're not going to be a total, like, I mean, well, if you are a total D and you put your face out there, people know exactly who you are. You're not hiding behind a username, which I'm not. You see my face. And, you know, there are plenty of other people on here, including, you know, everyone I follow is super nice. I've seen nothing but them respond kindly to people, help people with cheaper dolls. I've seen people make videos. You can literally YouTube, you know, cheaper BJDs, how to get cheaper BJDs, how to hybrid to make cheaper DJDs and stuff like that. Because I can tell you right now, I have 2 Midgie dolls on F-doll bodies because, well, A, I don't like Midgie doll's body. And B, it's really, really expensive, whereas an F-doll body, you can hit those up on the secondhand market sometimes for as cheap as $100 and $150, depending on what shape it's in. And I can tell you right now, those dolls are really hard to break, because I've done a lot to one of them. Claymore's on a F-doll body. he's seen some hard days, and that body's taken a lot. So, there's a lot of different ways to get cheaper bodies. The information is out there. I don't really know how to respond to that, because it is. I mean, I know for a fact I've watched Pint Size Palace talk about 2 of those topics. I've never personally had someone ask that question to me, but if they did, I'd answer. Preferably on Instagram, because the messaging system on here sucks. Really hardcore. Still, they've never fixed it. But the information's out there, so I don't really know how. I don't know. I mean, it's out there. They're cheap BJDs. I don't know how much Recast go for at this time, so I can't really tell you if, I've heard that mini fees on a Recast are like $90. And that's pretty equivalent to Resin Soul's pricing, so I don't really, that's not really an argument to me, because the pricing, there is a matching one. Now, there's going to be people who are like, oh, but I want a pretty doll that's, that price. And I'm like, well, then you have to save, because you're buying a fake doll. It's not real. It's there. I'm not trying to be mean, but the information's there, pretty readily available. And Layaway exists once you know you like the hobby, so. Well, we ran off mint on card, so. There went our best Layaway. 6 months. I'm still salty about that one. A little bit. I bought a lot of dolls from mint on card. A lot. On Layaway, 6 months. That was my best friend when I first started this hobby, was that 6-month Layaway. And as I know, Denver Doll does 4. And I think BJD Diva does a pretty long one. I've never ordered from them. And then there's Feather Falls, the company that died a long time ago, Emily. Fabric and Friends. There we go. Too many F's. That's why I confused them. And they do a Layaway, but you have to contact them. So, don't know how long their Layaways are. But, there's Layaways, and there's also cheap doll companies. So let me finish. Couldn't tell if this was another paragraph or not. It was kind of close. Maybe I didn't look in the right places. Maybe it's just me who is a noob. Yes, I'm a noob. But if these legit dolls companies really want to reel in us first timers, or the unfortunate souls who do not have the kind of money they are asking for, they should bring in cheaper options. I don't buy it when people say that recasts are worse looking than the originals. I have friends who have both types. They look very good, both of them. So if the recast can make the doll and sell it for 1/5 of the price compared to the legit company, why can't the legit company make cheaper versions? Why is it only the luxury people with money growing out of their noses who should get the dolls? Hell, I'm saving to buy a legit because I want to support a legit company, but sheesh. Okay. I've already been through some of this, but it's their choice. They choose not to make a cheaper version. B, recasters don't have all the bills, as I went through earlier. As a legit company, they are not paying sculptors. They are not paying to make prototypes that do or don't work. A good person to follow, even though he doesn't work with resin, he works with 3D printing, is Danny Cho, where he has to make multiple prototypes to get something to work. Think about having to also cast that, not just click a printer to print, even though 3D printing is expensive. So it's pretty comparable. There's prototyping, there's jointing, there's figuring this all out. Recasters don't do this. They steal it. I don't They don't. Very few have websites. They use things like, I know there are 2 or 3 out there that actually have websites, but they didn't when Recast first came out. When they were all brand new, they didn't even have that. I know the one being a butthole right now, you had to contact through Skype, and stuff like that. And, yeah, it's going to be cheaper because they don't have the overhead costs. They're not going through the prototyping. They're not going through the, making the websites. Fairyland and quite a few others do beautiful photos to show you how their dolls work and things like that, to show off their dolls. They make full sets. They prototype out full sets to sell. They, go through all this stuff that these recasters don't go through. Does that not matter? I mean, to me, it's obvious. So I understand that maybe that's not really obvious to other people, but they don't have the overhead costs that a normal company has. They're not having to do all the work. They're just stealing it. I hate to keep saying that, but that's all they're doing. They're stealing someone else's work and reaping the benefits without having to go through any of it. So it's kind of like if you've ever been at a job and you've seen some piece of junk who never works and never does anything, somehow magically move up the ladder while you're sitting at the bottom working your butt off and never getting ahead. Recasters aren't working their butt off. They're not, doing the legwork to enjoy the benefits. So that part bothers me a lot. That's why you'll hear me repeat that a lot. I work hard. I get paid for my work. Doll sculptors work really hard. They deserve to get paid for their work. Recasters steal it, mold it, and sell it for profit. They do none of the legwork. They just do the in-process, mold, cast, send off. None of the before. And there's a lot of before. You have to figure out what you want it to look like. You have to mold it. You have to make it out of whatever the person chooses. By what I've seen, it's mainly clay or something of that matter. Get the jointing system working, getting everything right, make a cast, see if things work the way they're supposed to once they're cast, and if they don't, tweaking, making another prototype, all of these things. And then a lot of companies, especially, Fairyland, Zoom, and all these other ones, make these beautiful full sets that they work really hard on. You have to prototype those things too, and then find someone who can make enough of that item to make it, worthwhile. And all of those other things that are going on behind the scenes. It's not just the doll being sold. Someone spent a lot of time doing all of this legwork. So that's why recasters can sell cheaper. Now, I'm going to address this. I have held a recast minifee in my hand. I own many a real minifees. I've held them both in my hand. They are not the same quality. They may look the same. They are not the same quality. This is not me being biased. I knew the person. As I said, people make mistakes. Stuff happens. I'm not judging people for that. As long as you're not continuing to be, someone, something, continuing to make a mistake is a mistake and you believe is a mistake and you just don't care, then, stuff happens. So I've held both. They're not. And the recast minifee I held was back when they were more expensive than they are now. Because I know this person paid $130 for the body alone. And I'm pretty sure a whole doll, last time I heard, which I haven't really looked, but I know the last time I heard it's like $90. That was on Tumblr, so it could be completely wrong. But I heard someone mentioning like something they were selling their recast, but it was before they were even cheaper, so it was better quality or something. I don't know. But I've held one back from back when they cost more versus the other one in my hand, and they were not the same quality. The one the person I knew had, the foot fell off, the hands didn't feel correctly. I had to rig the feet to work properly for her because it didn't work. They didn't use the proper magnets. It was a headache and a half, and it was not the same quality. I don't know if maybe this was just one bad experience, but this was not their only bad experience with recasts, and they regret their decisions. And they have since moved on because that didn't work out really well for them. I'll just tell you, they had one broken doll, then a promise to send replacement parts with the next order, and then those replacement parts were in the wrong color, and the blah blah blah. It was just a whole hoopla. But the only one I ever held for her was the minifee. Is not the same quality. It's not. Period. Anywhere close. They look the same from the outside. Like if you set them beside each other, you're not going to tell the difference. When I picked it up, and the foot fell off, and and the hands didn't work properly, and we had to rip the magnet out and re-glue one of my little fee magnets into it so that it could at least have a foot that stayed on. I don't even want to remember this time. It was such a freaking headache. Yeah, that person regretted their decisions. We'll just leave it at that. They're not the same quality. This person got 3 out of the 3. 1 was okay. It's okay. Sorry, my puppy's reverse sneezing is what the vet said it was. So yeah, they might look the same, but they're not. And I mean, maybe it's just bad luck, but I'm assuming she bought from Layaway or whatever, because it was back during the time where you had to contact him through Skype. I know that much. That person has since moved on from those like horrible mistakes. God, that was so annoying. Anyways, so those were the responses to that part. And the last part, luxury people with money growing out their butts. I'm gonna not be offended because I work my butt off for my money. And I am not rich, and I do not make a whole bunch of money. I coupon so that I can afford my hobby. I, you know, do a lot to make the money I have to afford my dolls. I work my butt off. I'm working overtime right now because I just spent a lot of money on a smart doll. Yay! If you're watching this and you got this far, you know what's coming next. And you know, I work my butt off. And I really don't know many people in this hobby that are just straight up rich. Or have a lot of money. I don't know where that... I mean, most of the people I follow are on YouTube. So we have Ann Picaro, who's definitely not rich. And she's had upwards of even more dolls than I have. And she's explained how she's afforded those. Taking side jobs and things of that manner. You know, we have Kitty Blue. Kitty Blue was her doll. Kitty Blue, who's bought tons and tons of dolls over the years. And I'm pretty sure she's not rich, considering some of her money comes from buying, selling on Etsy and things of that manner. I know I'm not rich. And we know people like, you know, Pint Sized Palace isn't rich. You know, we're still affording these expensive dolls. It's money management. It's a good skill to have. And saving. a good skill to have. You know, not everyone's going to be able to do what you got to do and do things and blah, blah, blah. But, you know, I don't know rich people in this hobby. I've met a lot of people in person, none of which who were rich. You know, there were no rich people at any of the meets I went to that I knew of. Most of them, we know, I mean, I've met a few upper middle class or upper kind of, you know, middle class people who own dolls. I mean, in all technicality, I fall somewhere in the lower middle class. And, you know, I've made a video about this. If you want to watch that, you have so many dolls, you must be rich. No. I work my butt off, and I've worked my butt off since I was 15 years old. I had to get a license to work. Anyways. So, yeah, that's my response to that. I mean, I'm very glad that this person is going legit and saving to, you know, buy from a legit company. That's what most people I know do. So, I get butthurt when people talk about, oh, you must be rich. No. I'm not even in the range of rich. I'm in the range of middle to lower middle class, depending on exactly where that falls. I'm not 100% sure. So, that's my response to those. This is getting a really long video, but it is what it is. I promised, and I don't want to redo this, so it's going to be what it is. Once the legit company makes a doll, then the mold, they're just going to recast from that, right? So technically, only the first raw doll is the legit one. Anyone after that is recast. I am in no way saying that people should buy recast for life, but I think a recast can, in some ways, open the door to a legit doll world. That is where I'm standing right now. I'm knocking on the door, but I can't pay the entry fee. Okay. I can't afford the music, so I'm just gonna steal it. I can't afford the movie theater, so I'm just gonna walk in and sit down and hope no one says anything. I can't afford this. That bothers me a lot. It's stealing to get something you want because you don't want to wait. I saved and bought my first legit doll. I mean, back then I didn't know Recast exists, but it wasn't cheap. I bought a full set Doll Zone doll as my first doll from Junkie Spot. It was a Doll Zone Annie. And oh sweet Jesus, my tablet died. What? Why? No. Oh, cruddy dud. This is not good. Did it die? It died. Oh, why? Let me pause this. Okay, so, my tablet died completely. Power is gone. Hence why I'm here. Tablet has been hooked back up. Computer is being a butthole and not wanting to start up because I need a new computer, and I have put that off, and I'm